Welcome to the scalr sagecast, bite-sized wisdom for ambitious business minds.
Hi, and welcome to scalr Sagecraft. My name is Matt Woodard, and welcome to our latest episode where we're talking to another business leader. This week, I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Mr. Craig Watson. Hey, Craig.
How are you, Matt? Good to be here, buddy.
Thank you so much. It must be a bit weird for you to be on the other side of the mic for a change.
Very, very weird indeed. I don't get to ask questions. That's going to be tough.
Well, I'll be asking the questions today, mate. So we're really keen to learn a bit more about you. So for those of you who don't know Craig, bit of a living legend in TA circles. I've known Craig since nearly 10 years now, with back in his Watson Collard days, agency days, and ever since then, more recently moved on to Rextra, Talent Flex, which I'm keen to hear a bit more about. That's your recent venture, but also Craig's one half of the successful and highly regarded TaPod, and more recently the Scoop, alongside his work wife Lauren Sharp. All while creating an amazing event for the talent community, the ITAs, the Internal Talent Awards, which are now back in September for the fourth year. Is it, Craig?
Yeah, I think so. It's third face-to-face, and we did have a online, for COVID before that. So yeah.
All fantastic events and just growing by the year. So as I said, strange as it is to be on the other side of the mic, this is the Craig Watson half hour. So keen to hear a bit about you and your journey so far.
Thanks, mate. The journey is a funny one because, like you said, I think it's I don't want to say less entrepreneurial spirit and more, distracted by shiny things, but I do tend to sort of cast the net a little bit in what I do. And I started off as a school teacher and went overseas to backpack for a year to the UK, but ended up staying 10. And that's how I got into recruitment per se. Like most people, fell into it and, went into an agency, which was a teacher's agency. And then when I wanted to leave the UK, I wasn't ready to come home. So I went and volunteered on a remote island as a teacher in Papua New Guinea for a couple of years with sort of like no electricity, not enough. The volunteer allowance didn't cover what you had to eat. So I had to go fishing every night and grow my own veggies and, live a real jungle life, which was fun. And then got back to Australia and fell into agency as a manager for a couple of years. And then, as you mentioned, with Luke Collard, sort of went into rec to rec, which enabled me to see sort of both sides. So I was filling roles of recruiters in agency, but also in turn helping build internal teams. And that's where I think the passion came for moving across into internal and into talent acquisition and learning about that. And I was lucky that I got a couple of opportunities to do some consulting pieces to try to, I suppose, bring some of the commercialization of what was occurring in some agencies into talent teams to give value to their C-suite, to really make it a little bit more sophisticated in how they were having business discussions and trying to, make improvements to tech stack and process and being considered as something that's a benefit internally into the business, as opposed to almost like an external function. That's where some parts of it were seen. So yeah, and that's, and met Lauren in that journey, which was very lucky amongst many, many other fantastic people, and started our podcast, which was, again, more luck than good management. We fell on an audience that probably was craving some knowledge, and there was a bit of a gap in the market there, and it's taken off and allowed us to grow things like the ITAs and other parts of what we do, and so that's where I came from, and where I'm going next is could be open to anyone.
Fantastic. Well, tell us a bit more about the ITAs. As I said, it's something that you mentioned there was a real gap in the market for, so really keen to understand a bit more about the journey that's taken you on. Obviously, was it something that you anticipated being a multi-year thing, or was it just a one-off, just to sort of sense check it? Because I think maybe it's exceeded all yours and Lauren's expectations in terms of how effective and successful it's been.
I think you're right there. We probably didn't have a long-term plan. It was one of those ideas that came to us during COVID. And so many people who be listening would have had similar parts of, COVID where they're sitting there and they just had nothing but time really. And yeah, came up with an idea. And we thought, well, the talent industry was going through such a painful period during COVID, and the lack of recognition and really the lack of perceived value, not only externally but internally by themselves, was something we thought, people need to be applauded and celebrated for the work they're doing. And that's the genesis of it, I guess, and how it evolved from there to where we are now. And this year there'll be 400 plus people. There's 16 awards. We're very lucky that you've got, it's probably the only place where all of the heads of talent, from big four banks to big four consulting to government to the largest retail to mid-sized companies to small teams, are in the room at the same time, and also without the added pressure of being sold to in an environment where it's okay, just go and let your hair down, celebrate, network, have fun, so yeah, so we get to throw a party every year. That's basically what it is, and it's fun because it's getting bigger, and particularly Lauren brings new ideas to it every year in how it can evolve to something else, and maybe reach into other people where they're just not getting that excitement from the industry. So yeah, it's grown and will continue to grow. There's plans to maybe take it to different areas. There's plans to do some other things with it, maybe even streamline some of the awards. Maybe 16's too many. We don't know. We're always fiddling with it to try to get it right.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And as I said, it seems to grow year on year. I think reflecting on where we're at now with the ITAs, but also the number of regional meetups. So we've got Adelaide and Sydney, and two in Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, I think even one going there. It's amazing the leap we've made in the last 8-10 years in terms of that connectiveness within the industry. And I guess TaPod TaPod and the ITAs is another sort of extension of that.
I agree more.
Have you sort of seen that, the evidence of that yourself?
Exactly. I think, over the last, 5 to 7 years, just starting in the lead up to COVID, and then really, having that sort of pause, and then where we are now, the Melbourne meetup group is amazing. And I think that a hell of a lot of your success that your team's put together there has helped the other regions begin, evolve, and grow there as well. I was lucky enough to be at Adelaide's one last month, and it was amazing. And they're all different. Like I was lucky enough to be at Brisbane's at Christmas, and been to a few in Sydney, and they're all run slightly differently, but it reaches into the psyche, I guess, of the people that live in that locality, right? And it's very locally driven, but it's so needed. And then you've got, on top of that, you've got Eden Haddock's Rubber Band, which is, an online community. And then you've got also Tardu, which is a Slack community. And you've got ATC, which provides, big events and small events. And you've got, Talent Table as well. And there's so many people that are working together to make this community something that I don't think that in its wildest dreams it thought would be to where it is. And I think it's the word that I'd like to sort of like put onto it is giving it value and giving it purpose. So people now can look at talent acquisition or in talent experience or whatever we're calling it these days, as a profession and as a long-term career, that there are points that you can get to, and you get to this stage and you get to the next stage and the next stage, and you're influencing internally. And it's not only the people you're getting jobs for, but internally the business. And it's really exciting to be part of it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely more sense of holding each other to account for this stuff as well. The likes of Circle Back Initiative as well coming in and creating that sort of idea that that these are the basic levels of service and quality that we should all uphold. And I think the fact that there's nearly over 300 companies and individuals joining, that is another indication that as an industry as a whole, we want to do better. We want to make sure that we are doing as well as we can do and involving our the service we provide.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think that we're in an industry or a profession that is self-governed to an extent. You don't have to have accreditation to be in any part of it. And with what Steve's done to give that level of accountability, and it's a base level that everyone should be achieving. It's saying, well, hang on, this is the value we're going to add to the candidate side, and we're committing to that. And then, from the client side, which is your internal clients, we're also self-governing in what we're going to achieve and what we're going to provide there. And it's, there's some fantastic, brilliant leaders throughout the industry that are driving some of this at the director end. But then also it's sort of like a lot of from bottom to top, if that makes sense. So a lot of it's driven by talent acquisition professionals and saying, well, we want this to be better because this is my career and this is my people now, my community, and I need to be here forever. So I need it to work.
Absolutely, for sure. Now, let's move on and talk a bit about about talent acquisition. Obviously, scalr as an organization, and you were a huge supporter of mine when I was getting things kicked off last year, which I've always been grateful for. But from your experience working in this industry, what sort of benefits have you seen of working as in talent advisory? Because I know that's something that you've done quite a lot in your career as well.
Yeah, I think touched on a little bit before, Matt, coming from an agency sort of background, which is run. Let's be honest, it's run very highly on commercials. Okay, there's a perceived value, and it's attached to a dollar. I think that what I've been lucky enough to be able to do with that experience is to maybe pull it away from the dollar, but look at the value and helping talent functions drive their value. That's what I see as the main point underpinning talent advisory in a consulting sense and in a function sense, because too often and for too long, people have said, oh yeah, cost center, right? Push that to a side. It's not so much a cost center. I see it was more as a support mechanism within a business, right? So if a business isn't hiring, why do they need TA? It's a very easy commercial question to ask yourself, right? So when we're going through what we've been through, particularly over the last few years, the roller coasters, the economy, wars, COVID, I've said it too many times already, this podcast, I'm sorry, but there's been so many different things throughout the world that have affected how people hire. AI, so replacement of people with other, with machines. We've got so many different things that we're looking at, and TA is so vulnerable to so many of those things unless they can articulate a value. And to do that, you can't only have it by acquisition. So the word acquisition is something we need to move far, far away from, or attraction, because that is a very small part of what we do. We know we've evolved into internal mobility. We've taken up a little bit of the lead in learning and development. We've really blurred those lines between what TA was and what HR was. And I'm seeing many leaders who were, director level or senior manager level in TA have migrated across to P&C or, HR positions to take a much more wider spectrum to what they were doing. And that's because they've been able to articulate, they've been able to find, and they've been able to define the value in what they're doing. So that's something that is at the center of every little piece of advisory work I do, is identifying, articulating, executing value.
Fantastic. So what, I guess following on from that, what would be the key piece of advice that you would give to leaders looking to scale their function, or have you given to leaders in the past?
Yeah, I think that, and I got this. This is a fair bit. Nicola Harrison did a talk, I think about this time last year, around how to engage with C-level. Right. So very firstly, if you're in a position of authority or management or leadership or directorship within a TA function, you need to be able to work with and influence C-suite in whatever business you're in. Otherwise, it's pointless. If you haven't got that relationship, or if you haven't got influencers on your side helping within a boardroom or an executive room, then you're going to struggle. So and again, stealing a fair bit of this from Nicola. Sorry, Nicola. If you're in a business where you're the TA function, you need to firstly understand the purpose of the business. Secondly, understand what drives the leaders in that business. And then thirdly, and bringing it back to that value piece, understanding and creating value for that part of the business. And look, the rest of it, anybody who is in a senior TA role in our industry knows TA, knows the candidate side, knows the recruitment side, probably has a really good handle on tech. The missing piece too often is how they're integrating with their C-level and understanding the wider needs of the business and how they can support them or make it even better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that often gets missed is when you have a TA function and the TA function's goals, either they don't have a clear strategy that's related to the function, but oftentimes that function, that strategy doesn't then align to the overall company goals. So you can't demonstrate value to the business. These are the actions that we're taking within the TA function, which is actually going to elevate and actually going to help you deliver your overall company goals. Yeah. So I think that is one of the most critical parts, which a lot of TA functions, whether they're mature or just not as sort of savvy, I guess, in terms of their evolution, that often gets missed. Creating that clear strategy which aligns to the overall company goals, which says these are the things we do, which is going to help you actually get to where you want to do. So they're actually that key support and key sort of business partner, rather than, as you say, a cost, because obviously they're not outward facing.
And it's difficult because, in times of high demand for added headcount, you're constantly working. You're driving the recruitment function from start to finish, right? And that doesn't leave you much time because most talent functions run lean, right? So when you've got a high number of requisitions, that's what you're doing. You're immersed in it. And in the downtime, it's often, you've got to produce some other point of value immediately. Otherwise, you're at risk. So it's very, very difficult. And it's almost like a tightrope when you're walking within a business in this area, because we are so demand driven. And to an extent, the talent functions in most businesses are reactive functions. They're there when the business demonstrates a need, we'll do it. If there's no need, they'll either cut or tone it down. So we've got to be able to move the dial from reactive to proactive. And it's difficult because we've got time constraints around high levels of hiring when we're in that part of the cycle. And then when we're in the lower cycle, there tends to be a fair bit of worry and concern that clouds your ability to be strategic. So it's difficult. I'm not here to tell you, if anyone's listening or watching and saying, oh, yeah, I know what I've got to do, but geez, I haven't got the time. I hear you. Or I haven't got the, capability because I'm being blocked here. I hear you. So so you've got to try to find the time to put aside to work on this part of your business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's critical. It's critical for long-term success, isn't it? For sure. So, and you touched on AI as well. I think that's been a subject topic on your on TaPod in recent weeks. And I think we will continue to talk about it actually at the next Melbourne Talent Meetup. That's going to be the focus of discussion as well. So it's clearly prominent and forefront of people's minds at the moment. But that's what Talent Flex is looking at, isn't it, Craig? So I'm keen to understand a bit about what you're doing with that, because I think that's a really interesting niche that actually may well end up helping a lot of TA functions.
Well, AI came out of nowhere and hit us in the face, I think November the year before last, really. And then since then, most of our tech in TA and HR have developed parts of AI with it, right? But the knowledge within our sector, within the people on the ground, is not really there, right? So I've spent the last year and a half, almost every spare moment I've had, really diving into AI and really trying to look at ways that how can it help a TA function? How can it make people within TA articulate their value piece more? And if you look at really the basic AI that we're talking about, everyone's heard about ChatGPT and probably Bard and Gemini, which are competitors, and that's generative AI. That's things where people go in and they put in a command and they'll get something back out. The power of generative AI and machine learning is amazing. And it all comes down to the prompts that we're putting in and the iteration of the prompts. So I'll try to make it really simple. Let's say everybody has position descriptions as part of their recruitment process. Everybody probably has either interview guides or interview questions. There are two areas straight away that Gen AI can make your life so much easier and again help you articulate value, because once you create the right prompts into say ChatGPT, which is cost next to nothing, you can start generating business-led templates that will save you time, be more efficient, and again, show you what, you can create the whole process for a hiring manager through just by working with Gen AI for a little while. And so what we're doing in Talaflex is we've learned all about it. So we're offering like sort of three solutions. One is consulting, going in and saying, let's review what you're doing, and I'll tell you what AI can help you with. Two, training. If you've got a team and you want them to be, at a different level with how they're interacting with AI, we'll train them on it. Or three, for companies that just don't think they have the time or the capability internally, they can outsource it. And this is something that I truly believe in. You might think, well, he's doing a sales job here, but I believe that in the next between 6 to 18 months, the service that I'm talking about now won't be needed. It's a stopgap, because the tech's going to get so good that it'll do it for you. And most people at the moment that have time constrictions are putting things into Gen AI once, maybe twice. They're not getting out what they think they want, so they park it. If they get the prompting right and the templates right and build rubrics around it, their lives are going to be so much easier. So it's just something that, there's a real need and within TA for better use of AI with the tools we already have. So that is something we're doing. And if anyone wants to have a chat about it, I'm happy to have a chat and, walk you through what I think you can do. And you probably won't even need to, engage me then. You probably just go and do it yourself. So.
But it's a fascinating area, and yeah, as you say, something that's definitely going to continue to evolve. I think we've had these ongoing discussions about whether the AI is going to remove the need for TA, and I think we're all probably comfortable with the fact that it will do as you suggest. It will automate a lot of processes, and it will probably enhance some. But it will probably never remove the need for the human interaction and the opportunity now that actually that we're afforded because we're doing less of those manual tasks. As you say, we're moving more into the focused on more of the candidate experience, more of the talent mobility, more of the recruitment marketing, more of the retention pieces that are so much more value adding and so much more important to an organization. So you actually, as a TA function, adding even more value to an organization than you might have done before as a result of the benefit of AI.
Well, we'll find time. We will find time. So you'll become better and you'll become more strategic. And mastering the tools of AI adds value to your business anyway. So there's some people are scared of it. We know everybody. Like my dad, God, can I get him to even pay for a bloody bill on the internet? No, I can't. We've got to look at generational change is happening whether we like it or not. So you can either place yourself in that box of a generation that doesn't want to look outside of it. And if you do, you will be replaced. So master the tools, relieve the functions that are boring and repetitive through AI, and use that time to be more strategic in your business. It makes sense. And that's how we've evolved. Like people in the 1600s, English was very different. Everything evolves. You try to read a Shakespeare play, Jesus, how hard is it? But every single thing evolves in life. We've been through the Industrial Revolution. We've been through, the internet. We've been through so many things. And this is just another iteration of where we are as a society. You can't ignore it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. All right. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Right, let's move on. The section I'm really keen to hear about. So I always ask guests to provide three pieces of advice, three nuggets of wisdom that have been picked up throughout your career that you feel important to pass on. Do you have some for us, Craig?
I'll see what I can do, mate. The first one, this one sits with me more than anything else. So many years ago, I was lucky to meet Someone who this guy's called Max Walker. So he was an Australian Test cricketer, and then he was on TV forever. So he was a celebrity through the 70s, 80s. Everyone knew him. He was on TV all the time. And anyhow, I was lucky enough to have a small business with him in video production. So, and I spent a lot of time with Maxie, and he used to say to me, he said, "Look, Craig, I'll give you one bit of advice. So this isn't mine." He said, "If anybody ever asks you for a coffee, take them up on it." Right? He said, "You may learn something new. You may add to your own skills. And the worst possible thing that can happen is you're going to get a free coffee." So that's something in terms of strategic, everything that, and I've taken that into our podcast arena. We try to invite people on that I'm going to learn from every single time, right? So you've got to have that in your makeup, is to go into a room and try to be the dumbest person in the room. Try to fill yourself, surround yourself with people who are going to feed your quest for knowledge and make you a better, more rounded person with smarter ideas. And that's something that, evolved from this one conversation with Maxie telling me never, ever say no to a coffee. So that's the one thing that, and I'd say that's almost like what I put at the back of my, my little, tools kit on strategy. Every single time it's like, right, that person over there who's been in a business, if I go into a business to talent advisory and want to understand where the business is and what it's operating, how it's going, I'll seek out everyone in the business. I'll go and talk to them, because they will all have an opinion and they will all have some form of value to add to the strategic content. So that's where I go.
That's a great one. That's a really good one. Fantastic. What else? What else? If you were in my position and sort of, starting on your entrepreneurial journey, bearing in mind someone who's had a lot of successful businesses in the past, what's maybe some of the key things that you've picked up and learned
I think
to continue to do, or maybe even just to not do?
Yeah, I think one of the main things is don't be doing it for you. Right? I mean, look, everybody who's an entrepreneur or runs their own business is doing it for them to an extent. You've got a mortgage, you've got a family, you've got to eat, right? They're your prime, but do not do what you're doing for you. You've got to run your business as a possible solution to a company. When you're talking to them, you might not have all the answers, and you need to be commercial enough but mature enough to tell them if you don't have the answers, and then help them find the answers elsewhere, because that will drive business continuity. And not only that, but your network. So you might have 10 phone calls a week of people who've been referred to you by someone who you couldn't help in the past. And you may not be able to help them either. But if you're seen as a person who's approachable, when that need comes, they will come to you. So do not go out there and say, "I've got all things for all people." Say, "I'm happy to share my knowledge. If I can help you from a commercial perspective in a relationship that way, let's go down that path." But do not ever think that you have all the answers.
So stay humble.
Stay humble. Yeah. I mean, well, stay humble. Well, you've got to, right? But once you switch that focus into an area of your expertise and you're engaged to fulfill that role, you must be the expert. So there's a couple of little hats you would wear, but being humble is so important, and also not thinking that you have all the answers all the time, because none of us do. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a consultant for this, a consultant for that, or a solution for this, and those sorts of things. There's like we talk about. I mean, I've got lots of friends in the ATS world, but there's no one ATS that does every single thing that every single person wants. It's horses for courses, and that's what you are as a business person. You haven't got a business that's going to provide every single solution for every single person. And the last bit of advice, the last bit of advice that I find it difficult. I find it really difficult to follow this, but I have to make myself do it, is you should always be in a constant state of learning. Right? I need to think of, just think of yourself and go, okay, everybody has certain music that they like, and, they'll hear something on the radio, or they'll hear someone play something at the beach. You think, Jesus, what's that bloody racket? Rah, 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 rah. But you've always got to be learning, because the world's evolving. I've got two boys that are 14 and 16, and they're heavily into music at the moment. And, they're liking their R&B or their hip hop or their UK drill. So I'm listening to, Drake, Lil Baby, or Digga D, all these things that I don't like, or I never thought I'd like, but I'm exposing myself to it because you've got to be continually learning. And I'm using music as a sort of a throwaway line here, but maybe when we touched on it earlier, things like AI, things like new tech that's coming in, you need to be over it. If you're seeing a talent function doing something really well, reach out to the head of that talent function and ask them what they're doing. Things like Canva, Atlassian, those sort of places that, people look up to. Don't be afraid to learn from them. And you can only learn by asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So sort of putting yourself out there, being a bit vulnerable, saying, I want to learn more.
Yeah, and attend your meetups. Like the stuff you get from meetups, and it is invaluable to what you do. Not only from the learning side of it, but from the networking side of it. Because there are times when, in a talent function, you might be in a small talent function, you might be in a large one, but it doesn't matter. Sometimes you feel very alone. But if you've got that network around your community, let's call them community because that's what they are. It really helps you. So be open to new things. Network, learn. That'll only enhance your career because at the end of the day, that's what we've got, right? In this industry, we've got a career and we need to be the best we can be in that career.
I think that's a really good point to finish on. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's been the whole point of the creating these communities that we have done, is because talent teams often are very small, like, 2, 3, 4 people, unless you're the big sort of enterprises, and that you can often feel like you're kind of plowing a lone furrow, and actually to be in amongst peers who are going through similar things and having similar challenges is just lifts a lot of pressure off you, makes you realize that you're not necessarily doing things wrong, but we can all learn and grow as a whole. So yeah, as I said, I think it's been great. We never expected when we started the meetup 8 years ago that we'd be around 2,000 members and growing, and similarly for the other regions as well. So no, you're absolutely right. That's fantastic. Thank you, Craig.
Sorry, the diversity of thought in those meetups are great too. So, like, I'll give an example from probably the last year with the Melbourne ones. There was a really fantastic one at Monash Talent on recruitment marketing with Keeler and who was the other? Andrew. And then we've got the Jobs for Humanity stuff that Michael Delaney and that were presenting. There's such a broad range of topics, and you take away something from all of them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Fantastic, Craig. Thank you so much. It's been a whirlwind sort of half an hour to speak with you. It's always lovely to catch up with you, but great to hear a bit about your journey as well. And 3 really valuable pieces of advice. So always accept a free coffee, and be open to learning. Don't do it for you, as you said, and also always be learning. Always be seeking to sort of upskill, because as you say, if you can't help somebody initially, then keep learning, and then you may end up being the go-to person for that in the end. So look, wonderful advice, and thank you so much. And look, all the very best with ongoing success with ITAs, with TaPod, and with Talent Flex as well. And thank you all to everyone listening and watching this episode today. If there is a leader you'd like to hear from, please let me know in the comments. And again, if you liked today's discussion, please subscribe and share. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.